The Galactic Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space like a jewel made of light. It was built on Orbis Prime, a station that belonged to no species and served all of them. For 3,000 years, the greatest leaders of the galaxy had come here to make decisions that shaped the fate of trillions. Today, they came to discuss surrender. Admiral Beek Sung-min stood at the back of the human delegation, his white uniform sharp against the flowing robes of alien diplomats around him. He was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. His hands were clasped behind his back, but anyone who knew him could see the tension in his shoulders. The hall was massive. 100 species sat in curved rows that rose toward a ceiling of transparent crystal. Through it, stars burned cold and distant. At the center, a holographic display showed a map of the galaxy, with 3 star systems highlighted in red. High Speaker Velos stood at the podium. He was Marathi, a species that looked like living crystal, tall and beautiful and cold. His voice rang through the hall like wind chimes in a storm. "The Varath Dominion has given us their terms," Velos said. "They asked for 3 systems. In exchange, they promised 30 years of peace. No raids, no invasions, no war." Murmurs spread through the assembly. Admiral Beek watched the faces of the delegates. He saw fear. He saw calculation. He saw relief. He did not see courage. "The Varath have been raiding our colonies for 30 years, Velos continued. "They have taken millions of our people as slaves. They have burned worlds. They have shown no mercy. But now they offer peace. We must consider their offer seriously." Arbiter Then rose from the Corval section. The Corval were insectoid, with hard shells and clicking mandibles. They were warriors, conquerors, empire builders. But even they feared the Varath. "The terms are acceptable," Then said, his voice like stones grinding together. 3 systems is a small price for peace. The species who live there are few. Their sacrifice will save billions. Admiral Beek felt his jaw tighten. He looked at the 3 red systems on the map. One of them was Sejong 7, a human farming colony. 400,000 people lived there. Families, children, people, who had built homes and planted crops and believed their government would protect them. Now, their government was discussing how to sell them. The debate continued for hours. Species after species rose to speak. Some expressed regret. Some expressed concern. But one by one, they voted in favor of the peace terms. The Marathi voted yes. The Corval voted yes. The gentle Pelorai, the ancient Sindari, the proud Vesan, all of them voted yes. Finally, it was humanity's turn. Ambassador Rin Sohar rose from her seat. She was young for a diplomat, barely 40, but her eyes were old with disappointment. She looked around the assembly, at the representatives of 100 species who had just voted to abandon millions of people to slavery. "The United Earth government votes no," she said. Silence fell over the hall. "High Speaker." Velos turned his crystalline head toward her. "Ambassador Rin, I must remind you that the peace terms include human colonies. If you reject the terms, you reject peace for your own people." "We reject the terms because they include our people," Rin said. "Sejong 7 is a human world. 400,000 human citizens live there. You are asking us to hand them to slavers. We are asking you to accept reality," Arbiter Then said. "The Varath are stronger than all of us combined. We cannot defeat them in war. We can only buy time. Buy time with human lives? With all of our lives. Do you think the Marathi enjoy sacrificing their colonies? Do you think the Corval feel no shame? We do what we must to survive." Admiral Beek could not stay silent any longer. He stepped forward, and the eyes of 100 species turned to him. "I have fought the Varath," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall. I have seen their slave camps. I have seen what they do to the people they conquer. They do not want workers. They want broken spirits. They want creatures that have forgotten they were ever free. He walked toward the center of the hall, toward the holographic map. You speak of sacrifice, he continued. You speak of reality. But what you really mean is that you are afraid. You are afraid of the Varth, so you will give them whatever they want. Today, it is 3 systems. Tomorrow, it will be 10. Next year, it will be 20. Where does it end? High Speaker Velos spread his crystalline arms. It ends with peace, Admiral. It ends with survival. Survival as what? Beak asked. Survival as cowards who sell their own people? Survival as slaves who simply have not been claimed yet. The hall erupted in angry voices. Delegates shouted protests. Arbiter Then's mandibles clicked with fury, but Admiral Beak stood firm. 200 years ago, humanity joined this assembly, he said. You welcomed us. You said we were part of the galactic family. You said that together we were stronger. Was that a lie? Was it all just words? No one answered. Admiral Beak nodded slowly. I see. When times are good, we are family. When times are hard, we are acceptable losses. He turned to Ambassador Rin. We should leave. Admiral, Velos began. The vote is finished, Beak said. You have made your choice. Now humanity will make ours. He walked out of the assembly hall. Ambassador Rin followed him. Behind them, 100 species watched in silence dot in the corridor outside. Admiral Beak pulled out his communicator. His fingers were steady as he typed a message to Fleet Command. It was short, just 2 sentences. They chose cowardice. We choose our people. The response came within minutes. It was even shorter. Understood. Fleet mobilizing. Admiral Beak put away his communicator. He looked at Ambassador Rin, who was pale with shock. What happens now? She asked. Now we bring our people home, he said. All of them. No matter what it costs. Far away, orbiting a small space station near the border, Captain Park Dae-ho received his orders. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood. He was not being told to stand down. He was not being told to accept the peace terms. He was being told to prepare his ship for combat operations in the Sejong system. He looked at his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kim Yuna. She was reading the same orders, her face hard with determination. Well, she said, it seems we are going to war. Captain Park nodded. It seems we are. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. We have received new orders. We are going to Sejong 7 to evacuate our citizens. The Galactic Assembly has abandoned them. We will not. Prepare for combat. That is all. Throughout the ship, men and women moved to their stations. They did not question their orders. They did not hesitate. They were human, and their people needed them. The battleship Resolve turned toward the stars and began to move. Behind it, the Galactic Assembly continued to debate. They talked about peace and sacrifice and the greater good. They congratulated themselves on their wisdom and their restraint. They did not notice that humanity had stopped listening. They would notice soon enough. Colony Sejong 7 was a world of golden fields and quiet rivers. Its people were farmers, teachers, engineers, and families who had come to the edge of human space to build something new. For 3 generations, they had worked the land and raised their children under an orange sun-dot. Now that sun was setting on their way of life. Governor Choi Myra stood on the balcony of the Colonial Administration building, watching the evacuation unfold below. The streets were crowded with people carrying bags, pushing carts, leading children by the hand. Some were crying. Some were angry. All of them were afraid. She was 54 years old, a former soldier who had retired to build instead of destroy. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She had not rested since the news came 3 days ago. The Galactic Assembly had sold them. The Varth were coming. Her aide, a young man named Ko Ji-hoon, appeared at her side. "Governor, Captain Park's fleet has entered the system. 4 ships. They will be in orbit within the hour." "4 ships?" Choi said quietly. "Against 40. Yes, ma'am." She turned away from the balcony. There was no time for despair. There was only time for action. Down at the main spaceport, Sergeant Han Tai-yang was shouting orders at his militia. They were not real soldiers. They were shopkeepers and mechanics and students who had picked up weapons because someone had to. Most of them had never fired a gun before last week. Now they were standing between their families and the Varth Dominion. "Listen to me," Tai-yang shouted. "Our job is simple. We hold this spaceport until the last transport leaves. That is all. We do not need to win. We do not need to be heroes. We just need to give our people time." A young woman raised her hand. "How much time?" Tai-yang looked at his watch. "The Varth will be here in 6 hours. The evacuation needs 8. So we hold for 2 hours longer than possible." No one laughed. No one complained. They simply checked their weapons and took their positions. At the Colonial Hospital, Dr. Yoon Ji-soo was organizing the medical evacuation. 300 patients needed to be moved to transport ships. Some were elderly. Some were injured. Some were babies born just days ago. "We need more stretchers," she said to her nurses. "And more hands. Get the volunteers from the school. Even children can carry supplies." A nurse hesitated. "Doctor, should children really be? Children are going to see much worse if we do not get everyone out," Ji-soo said sharply. Then her voice softened. I know this is hard. But we do what we must." 1 hour later, the human fleet arrived. Captain Park Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the Resolve, looking at the planet below. It was beautiful, green and gold and blue, like so many human worlds. Like so many worlds that deserve better than abandonment. "Status report," he said. Lieutenant Kim Yuna checked her displays. "All civilian transports are loading. Current capacity is about 380,000. We can save most of them, sir. But not all. How many will we have to leave behind?" 20,000. Maybe more. Park closed his eyes for a moment. 20,000 people. 20,000 lives that he could not save. The math was cruel, but it was honest. "Then we make sure those transports get away," he said. "No matter what." The hours passed too quickly. Families were separated as some ships filled before others. Parents put children on transports and stayed behind to make room. Old people refused seats so young people could take them. Governor Choi watched it all from the command center. She had given up her own seat on a transport hours ago. She would stay until the end. "Governor," Ji-hoon said, "we are receiving a transmission. It is from the Varth fleet. Put it through." The screen flickered and a face appeared. It was not really a face, just a mass of dark flesh and too many eyes. Commander Draxel of the Varth Dominion spoke with a voice like breaking bones. "Humans of Sejong 7, you have been given to us by your own galaxy. Surrender now, and you will be processed quickly. Resist, and you will suffer." Choi leaned forward. "This is Governor Choi My-rae. We reject your offer. We are evacuating our people. You will not stop us." Draxel made a sound that might have been laughter. 4 ships against 40? You cannot be serious. We are completely serious. Then you are fools. We will destroy your little fleet and take your people anyway. Your resistance is pointless." Choi smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Maybe, but we will make you bleed for every one of them. Is that price worth paying?" The transmission ended. 30 minutes later, the Vorath fleet arrived. Captain Park watched them come on his tactical display. 40 warships spreading out in an attack formation. They were bigger than his ships, better armed, more numerous. By every measure that mattered, he was going to lose. He opened a channel to his fleet. All ships, this is the captain. We are not here to win. We are here to buy time. Every minute we survive is another transport that escapes. Every Vorath ship we damage is one less chasing our civilians. Fight smart. Fight hard. Make them pay. The battle began. The Resolve led the charge, diving toward the Vorath formation with weapons blazing. Plasma fire lit up the darkness. Shields flared and failed. Metal screamed as hulls were torn apart. Lieutenant Kim's fingers flew over a console. Enemy fighters incoming. Adjusting point defense. Transferring power to forward shields. Helm, take us through the asteroid field, Park ordered. Make them follow us. The human ships were smaller and faster than the Vorath. They could not trade blows, but they could run and dodge and strike from unexpected angles. Park used every trick he knew, every tactic from every battle he had ever fought. The first human ship died 20 minutes into the fight. The destroyer Courage took a direct hit to its reactor and exploded in a ball of fire. 200 crew, gone in an instant. Park did not have time to mourn. Continue the attack. Draw them away from the planet. Below, the last transports were lifting off. Governor Choi watched them rise into the sky, carrying her people to safety. Tears ran down her face, but she did not wipe them away. Governor, Jihoon said, there is one more transport. There is room for you. How many people are still waiting? 53. Then I stay. Fill every seat with someone who has not lived as long as I have. Jihoon nodded. He did not argue. He knew there was no point in orbit. The battle was reaching its end. 2 more human ships had fallen. Only the Resolve remained, and it was burning. Fires raged in half its compartments. Life support was failing. The crew was dying, but the transports were away. Captain Park looked at his displays. 380,000 people were now beyond the Vorath's reach, racing toward human space at maximum speed. He had done his job. Captain, Kim said, her voice weak from blood loss. A piece of metal had hit her during the last attack. Vorath commander is hailing us. Put him through. Draxel's many eyes stared at him from the screen. You are defeated, human. Your ship is crippled. Surrender, and I may let your crew live. Park laughed. It hurt to laugh, but he did it anyway. Look at the sky, Draxel. Do you see those lights? Those are our transports. They are already beyond your reach. 380,000 people that you will never touch. You sacrificed your fleet for farmers? We sacrificed our fleet for our people. That is what humans do. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. Lieutenant Kim shook her head. Sir, I am staying. You are injured. You need medical attention. I can still fly this ship, sir. Let me give the escape pods time to get away. Park looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. You are the bravest person I know, Kim Yuna. Just doing my duty, sir. Now go. He went. The escape pods launched as the Resolve made one final charge at the Vorath fleet. Lieutenant Kim aimed the burning ship at the enemy flagship and pushed the engines to maximum. She did not survive the impact, but neither did Draxel's command deck. Hours later, the escape pods were recovered by human rescue ships. Captain Park stood on the deck, watching the stars where his ship and his tactical officer had died. A transmission came through from Draxel, broadcast to the entire galaxy. Humanity has violated the peace accord. The Galactic Assembly must punish them, or the Vorath will consider it an act of war against all species. Park turned off the transmission. He did not care what the galaxy thought. He cared about the 380,000 people who were now safe. That was enough. That was everything. Earth had never looked so beautiful from orbit. President Moonhajin stood at the window of her office in Geneva, watching the blue planet turn slowly below. Clouds drifted across continents. City lights sparkled on the night side. 8 billion people lived down there, and all of them were waiting to hear what she would say. Behind her, General Shin Woo-jin cleared his throat. Madam President, the Assembly's resolution has passed. The vote was unanimous. Unanimous, she repeated. Not one species voted against our condemnation? Not one. The Marathi proposed it. The Korval seconded it. Even the species we have helped over the years voted yes. Moon turned away from the window. She was 60 years old, a former diplomat who had spent her life building bridges between species. Now, those bridges were burning. What are the terms? She asked. Complete trade sanctions. Military exclusion from all joint operations. Diplomatic isolation. And they demand that we hand over Admiral Beak for trial as a war criminal. A war criminal. For saving 400,000 lives. They see it differently. They see a man who started a war that could destroy the galaxy. Moon sat down at her desk. On it was a folder containing casualty reports from Sejong 7. 300 human soldiers dead. 2 ships destroyed. Lieutenant Kim Yuna, who had crashed her burning ship into the Vorath flagship to buy time for escape pods, was being called a terrorist by half the galaxy. She was also being called a hero by the other half. What do our people think? Moon asked. General Shin handed her a tablet. We have been receiving messages from every human colony for the past 48 hours. Protests against the Assembly. Donations to the War Fund. Volunteers for military service. He paused. Madam President, I have been a soldier for 40 years. I have never seen anything like this. Moon looked at the tablet. Millions of messages scrolled past. From workers on mining stations. From farmers on colony worlds. From children in schools. All of them said the same thing in different words. We stand with you. We will not surrender our own. She stood up. Prepare a broadcast. I want to address all of humanity. 1 hour later, President Moon stood before a camera in the broadcast center. The transmission would reach every human world, every ship, every outpost. It would also be watched by every species in the galaxy. She took a deep breath and began. My fellow humans, 3 days ago, the Galactic Assembly voted to condemn us. They say we broke the peace. They say we started a war. They say we are dangerous and reckless and unfit to be part of galactic civilization. She paused, letting the words sink in. They are right about one thing. We are dangerous. We are dangerous to anyone who threatens our families. We are dangerous to anyone who tries to enslave our children. We are dangerous to anyone who mistakes our kindness for weakness. She touched a control, and the screen behind her changed. Images appeared. Vorath slave camps. Aliens in chains. Bodies of those who had tried to escape. This is what the Vorath do to the people they conquer. This is what the galaxy wanted us to accept for our own citizens. 400,000 people on Sejong 7 were to be handed over to this fate. The Assembly called it peace. We call it betrayal. The images changed again. Now they showed the evacuation. Families boarding transports. Soldiers standing guard. The Resolve making its final charge. Our soldiers gave their lives so that those families could escape. Lieutenant Kim Yuna crashed her burning ship into the enemy rather than let them reach our civilians. The galaxy calls her a terrorist. We call her a hero. Moon stepped closer to the camera. The Assembly demands that we hand over Admiral Beak. They demand that we accept their sanctions. They demand that we bow our heads and accept punishment for the crime of protecting our own people. Her voice hardened. We refuse. In homes across the galaxy, humans watching the broadcast began to cheer. We refuse to abandon our people to slavers. We refuse to apologize for saving lives. We refuse to accept a peace built on the suffering of innocents. If that makes us criminals, then we will be criminals. If that makes us enemies of the galaxy, then so be it. She raised her head high. To the Vorath Dominion, I say this. You wanted 3 systems. Now you will get war. You think you are stronger than us. You may be right. But strength is not just about ships and weapons. It is about will. It is about will. It is about what you are willing to sacrifice for what you believe. We believe in our people. We believe in freedom. We believe that no one, no species, no empire, no assembly has the right to sell innocent lives for convenience. You will find that humans are very hard to break. She turned slightly, as if speaking to someone off camera. To the Galactic Assembly, I say this. You have made your choice. You chose fear over friendship. You chose safety over honor. We understand. We do not agree, but we understand. One day, the Vorath will come for you too. They will demand more systems, more people, more surrender. And you will give it to them, because that is who you have chosen to be. When that day comes, remember us. Remember that there was a species that said no. Remember that there was a species that fought back. Maybe you will find your courage then. Maybe it will be too late. The broadcast ended. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. Every human world voted for resistance. Factories converted to war production. Scientists shared research openly. Retired soldiers re-enlisted by the millions. Even artists and poets contributed, creating songs and stories that spread across human space like fire dot in the Defense Council chambers. General Shin presented the strategic reality. The Vorath have 2,000 warships. We have 300. Their empire spans 200 systems. Ours spans 40. In a direct war, we lose. Then, we do not fight directly, said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned. Commander Kim Yuna walked in, her arm in a sling, her face pale but determined. The reports of her death had been wrong. She had ejected at the last moment, found drifting in space by a rescue ship hours later. Commander Kim, General Shin said, you should be in a hospital. I should be dead, she replied. Instead, I am here, and I have an idea. She walked to the strategic display and began to speak. The Vorath Empire is built on conquest. They take worlds, strip them of resources, and move on. Their infrastructure is spread across hundreds of systems, connected by supply lines and communication networks. She highlighted routes on the map. They have never fought a defensive war. They do not know how to protect their own territory because no one has ever attacked it. Their civilians have never experienced bombing. Their leaders have never felt fear. What are you suggesting? General Shin asked. I am suggesting that we do not fight their fleet. We fight their empire. We send small teams behind their lines. We destroy supply depots. We free slave camps. We assassinate commanders. We make them bleed from 1,000 cuts until they cannot sustain the war. President Moon studied the map. Can it work? It will take years. It will cost lives. But yes, it can work. The Vorath do not know how to fight an enemy that refuses to die. They have never met humans before. General Shin nodded slowly. We will need volunteers. People willing to operate behind enemy lines with no support and no hope of rescue. You will have them, Commander Kim said. After what happened at Sejong 7, You will have more volunteers than you can use." Ambassador Rin Soha entered the room. She had just returned from the Galactic Assembly, where she had delivered humanity's final message. "It is done," she said. "I told them we will not submit. I told them to watch what happens when humanity fights alone." "How did they react?" Moon asked. Rin smiled grimly. High Speaker Velo said we were making a mistake. Arbiter Then said we were committing suicide. I told them that humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the death of stars. We will survive this too. President Moon looked around the room at the people who would lead humanity through its darkest hour. Soldiers and diplomats. Scientists and commanders. Young and old. All of them afraid, and all of them determined. "Then let us begin," she said. Across human space, ships launched in secret. Small, fast, equipped with stealth technology. Their crews were volunteers who knew they might never return. Their mission was simple: make the Vorath pay for every human life they had taken. The war was not beginning. It had already started, and the Vorath did not even know it yet. The stealth carrier Silent Thunder drifted through the darkness of Vara space like a ghost. Its hull was painted black, its engines ran cold, and its crew had not spoken above a whisper for 3 days. They were 500 light years behind enemy lines, and detection meant death. Commander Kim Yuna sat in the command center, studying holographic maps of Vorath territory. 6 months had passed since the war began. 6 months of hidden-run attacks, sabotage missions, and desperate escapes. Her hair had gone gray at the temples. Her eyes had grown hard. But she was still alive, and that was more than many could say. "Commander," said Lieutenant Beek Jun, looking up from his console, "we have confirmed the target." Kim leaned forward. "Show me." The map zoomed in on a planet deep in Vorath space. Their homeworld. The center of their empire. The most protected place in the galaxy. The planetary shield is powered by a single reactor complex, Meek explained. It is buried underground, beneath 3 kilometers of rock and metal. They believe it is untouchable. And the flaw? Here. He pointed to a section of the complex. The cooling system. It requires a connection to the surface. The pipes are narrow, but a small team could enter through the maintenance tunnels. Chief Engineer Quan Doan shook his head. The security will be incredible. Sensors, guards, automated defenses. Even if we get in, we will never get out. "I know," Kim said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she was saying. This was a one-way mission. Sergeant Onari spoke from the corner. She was the youngest member of the team, barely 25, but she had seen more horror than most soldiers twice her age. As a child, she had been a slave in a Vorath labor camp. Human Marines had rescued her 15 years ago. She had never forgotten. "I will go," she said. "Nari," Kim began, "I know the Vorath better than anyone on this ship. I know their buildings, their security systems, their language. If anyone can get a team through those tunnels, it is me." Lieutenant Beek stood up. "Then I will go too. My uncle is Admiral Beek. He has lost too many people in this war. Let me give him a victory." Quan sighed heavily. "Someone has to make sure the explosives actually work. I suppose that means me." Kim looked at her team. 3 volunteers for a suicide mission. 3 people who knew they were going to die and went anyway. "I will lead the mission myself," she said. "Commander, you cannot." "I can, and I will. This is too important to trust to anyone else. And I've been living on borrowed time since Sejong 7. Let me spend it well." The planning took 3 weeks. They studied maps until they could draw them from memory. They practiced in simulations until their movements were automatic. They said goodbye to friends in small ways, never speaking directly about what was coming. on the night before the mission. Lieutenant Beak found Commander Kim standing alone in the observation deck, watching the stars. "Cannot sleep?" he asked. "Not tonight, you?" "Same." He stood beside her. "Commander, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do you keep fighting? You could have retired after Sejong 7. You had earned it. Instead, you volunteered for the worst assignments behind enemy lines. Why?" Kim was quiet for a long moment. "When I crashed my ship into that Varth flagship," she said, "I thought I was going to die. I made peace with it. I was ready, but you survived." "Yes, and when I woke up in that hospital bed, I realized something. I was not afraid anymore. The worst had already happened, and I had lived through it. What else could the universe do to me?" She turned to face him. "I keep fighting because I can. Because there are people who cannot fight for themselves. Because every Vorith supply depot we destroy is food that will not reach their armies. Every slave camp we liberate is 100 people who get to be free. Every commander we kill is one less monster giving orders. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we give humanity a chance. Maybe we die. Probably we die. But if we succeed, the Varth homeworld loses its shields. Our fleet can strike at their heart. The war could end." Beak nodded slowly. "My uncle used to say that courage is not about not being afraid. It is about being afraid and doing what must be done anyway. Your uncle is a wise man. I hope I can make him proud." Kim put her hand on his shoulder. "You already have." The insertion was flawless. A small shuttle, running silent, dropped them on the dark side of the Varth homeworld. They landed in a wasteland, far from any settlement, and began the long walk to the reactor complex. The tunnels were exactly where the intelligence said they would be. Sergeant O led the way, her knowledge of Varth architecture guiding them through a maze of pipes and conduits. Twice they had to hide from patrols. Once they had to kill a guard silently, his body hidden in a ventilation shaft. After 8 hours of crawling through darkness, they reached the reactor chamber dot. It was massive. A pillar of energy rose from the floor to the ceiling, contained by magnetic fields and cooled by rivers of liquid gas. The hum of power filled the air, so deep it vibrated in their bones. "There," Quan whispered, pointing to the base of the reactor. "That is where we plant the charges. If we destroy the magnetic containment, the whole thing goes critical. How long will we have?" Kim asked. "Maybe 2 minutes. Maybe less. That is not much time to get out." Quan looked at her sadly. "Commander, we were never getting out." She knew. They all knew. But hearing it said aloud made it real. "Then let us make it count," she said. "B. Quan, plant the charges. Nari, cover the entrance. I will handle the control systems." They moved like shadows. Beak and Quan worked quickly, attaching explosives to the containment pylons while Kim accessed the control panels, disabling safety systems that might prevent the overload. They were almost finished when the alarms went off. "We have been detected," O shouted. "Guards coming from the south entrance. How many?" 20. Maybe more." Kim finished her work on the controls and drew her weapon. "Hold them off. Just a few more minutes." The firefight was brutal. Varth guards poured into the chamber, their weapons filling the air with plasma fire. O fought like a demon, her rifle cutting down enemies faster than they could advance. But there were too many. Quan fell first, shot in the chest as he armed the final charge. He managed to press the detonator before he died, his last act completing the mission. O fell second, buying time for the others to reach cover. She smiled as she went down, whispering something in the Varth language that made the guards hesitate. Beak was hit while running toward the exit tunnel. The shot took him in the leg, and he fell hard. Kim ran back for him, dragging him into cover. "Leave me," he gasped. "Get out. No one left behind," she said. "Commander, the charges are set. The reactor will blow in 90 seconds. You have to go. Not without you. Then we both die here." He looked at her with clear eyes. "Tell my uncle I did not run." Kim felt tears on her face. She had not cried since Sejong 7. "I will tell him," she said. "I promise." Beak closed his eyes. His breathing slowed and stopped. Kim stood alone in the reactor chamber. Around her, Varith guards were advancing. Above her, the reactor was beginning to pulse with unstable energy. She had maybe 60 seconds left. She ran, not toward escape. There was no escape. She ran toward the communication console in the corner of the chamber. If she could send one message, one signal, humanity would know the shields were falling. She reached the console with 30 seconds to spare. Her fingers flew across the controls, inputting the frequency for the human fleet. 20 seconds. She opened the channel. 10 seconds. "Earth," she said, her voice steady. "The door is open." 5 seconds. She looked up through the transparent ceiling. Somewhere out there, beyond the sky, her people were waiting. The reactor exploded. The blast was visible from orbit. A pillar of fire rose from the surface of the Varith homeworld, and with it, the planetary shields flickered and died. In the command ship of the human fleet, Admiral Beek Soo-min received Commander Kim's final message. He listened to it twice, his face showing no expression. Then he stood and addressed his fleet. "All ships, this is the Admiral. The shields are down. Our people gave their lives to open this door for us. Now we walk through it." He paused. "For humanity. For the fallen, attack." Above the Vorath homeworld, 500 human warships dropped out of hyperspace. Every ship that could fly. Every weapon that could fire. The full strength of humanity gathered for one final blow. The door was open. It was time to end the war. The sky above the Varith homeworld burned with the fire of 1,000 warships. Admiral Beek Soo-min stood on the bridge of the Resolve II, named in honor of the ship his nephew had helped destroy 6 months ago. Through the view screen, he watched the Varith defense fleet scramble to meet the human attack. They were confused, disorganized, unprepared. They had never imagined anyone would dare strike at their home. "Enemy fleet engaging," reported his tactical officer. 200 ships. "They are trying to form a defensive line." "Break through them," Beek ordered. "All ships, attack pattern Delta. Do not stop until we reach orbit." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, each captain knowing exactly what to do. They had trained for this moment. They had sacrificed everything for this chance. The Vorath fought hard, but they were fighting on their own ground for the first time in their history. Their commanders had spent their careers conquering weaker species. They did not know how to defend. One by one, the Vorath ships fell. Overlord Draxel watched from his command center on the surface, his many eyes filled with something he had never felt before. Fear. True fear. The kind of fear that his species had inflicted on others for centuries. "Overlord," one of his officers said, "the planetary shields are gone. We cannot stop them. Then we negotiate. Contact the human commander. Offer them terms." "What terms?" Draxel thought quickly. "Tell them we will return to our borders. We will accept the original agreement. No more raids, no more invasions. Peace." The message was sent. Minutes later, a response came back. Admiral Beek's face appeared on the screen. He was calm, almost peaceful, despite the chaos of battle around him. "You offer peace," Beek said. "You offered peace before, when you demanded we surrender our people to slavery. That was not peace. That was just a slower form of war. Admiral, please. We can end this. No more blood needs to be spilled." "You are right. No more blood needs to be spilled. But not because you ask for mercy. Because we choose to give it. He leaned forward. Here are our terms. Your military will be disbanded. Your war criminals will face trial. Your slave camps will be dissolved, and every captive will be freed. You will pay reparations to every species you have harmed. That is everything, Draxel said. You are asking us to surrender everything. No, we are allowing you to keep your world, your culture, your future. We are offering you something you never offered anyone else. A chance to survive. And if we refuse? Beak's expression did not change. Then we continue the battle. Your shields are down. Your fleet is broken. We have weapons aimed at every city on your planet. If we wanted, we could end your species today. The words hung in the air. Both of them knew they were true. You would commit genocide? Draxel asked. No, Beak said. That is why I am offering you terms. We are not you, Overlord. We do not destroy simply because we can. But do not mistake mercy for weakness. If you refuse these terms, if you threaten humanity again, there will be no third chance. Draxel was silent for a long time. His officers watched him, waiting for orders. The fate of their entire species hung on his answer. Finally, he spoke. We accept. The news spread across the galaxy like lightning dot in the Galactic Assembly Hall. The great leaders watched in stunned silence as reports came in. The Vorath had surrendered. The war was over. Humanity had won. High Speaker Velos turned to Arbiter Then. They actually did it. They defeated the Vorath. They did more than defeat them, Then replied, his voice strained with wonder. They showed them mercy. After everything the Vorath did, after all the death and slavery, the humans let them live. Why? They had every right to destroy them. Perhaps that is exactly why they did not. President Moonhagen addressed the galaxy from Earth. Behind her stood Admiral Beak, his face still marked with the grief of all he had lost. But there was pride there too. Pride in what humanity had accomplished. To the Galactic Assembly, Moon said, we have heard your silence during our struggle. We have noted your absence when we needed allies. We understand. Fear is a powerful thing. But today we stand not as accusers, but as proof. Proof that courage is possible. Proof that the strong do not have to crush the weak. Proof that mercy is not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. The Vorath Dominion terrorized this galaxy for generations. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. Today, their military is gone. Their crimes will be judged. Their victims will be freed. But their people will live. Their children will grow up in a galaxy where they are not conquerors, but members of a community. That is the peace we have chosen. Not a peace of surrender, but a peace of justice. She paused, letting her words sink in. We did not fight this war alone because we wanted to. We fought alone because we had to. The galaxy abandoned us when we needed help. We will remember that. But we will also remember something else. We will remember that even in our darkest hour, we found strength in each other. Humans from every world, every colony, every ship came together. We did not break. We did not bend. We stood and we won. Let that be our message to the galaxy. We are humanity. We protect our own. And we will never, ever give up. On the surface of the Vorath homeworld, the slave camps were being opened. Millions of people, aliens from dozens of species, walked out into the light for the first time in years. Many of them cried. Many of them fell to their knees. Some just stood still, unable to believe they were free. Governor Choi Mai-Rei was there, helping to organize the liberation. She had survived the evacuation of Sejong 7 and had volunteered for the humanitarian mission as soon as the fighting stopped. Governor, one of her aides said, there is a group of human slaves in the next camp. Survivors from the colonies that fell before we could evacuate them. Choi felt her heart tighten. How many? 300. They had been here for months. She walked to the camp entrance. The gates were open and people were streaming out. Thin, weak, scarred, but alive. A young woman stumbled toward her. She looked at Choi's uniform, at the human insignia on her shoulder, and began to cry. "You came back," she whispered. "They told us no one would come. They told us we were forgotten." Choi took her hands. "We never forgot you. Not for one day. Not for one moment. How did you find us?" "We never stopped looking." In the Galactic Assembly Hall, High Speaker Velos rose to speak. The hall was silent, every delegate watching. "We were wrong about humanity," he said. "We saw a young species and thought them weak. We saw their kindness and thought it foolishness. We saw their passion and thought it recklessness. We were wrong about all of it. Today, the humans have taught us something that we forgot long ago. True strength is not measured in warships or weapons. It is measured in what you do when you have power over others. The humans had power over the Vorath. They could have destroyed them. They chose mercy. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is courage. That is strength. On behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I apologize to humanity. We failed you when you needed us most. We ask your forgiveness, and we ask for the chance to earn your trust again." Admiral Beak stood beside President Moon, listening. When Velos finished, he leaned close to her. "Do we forgive them?" he asked quietly. Moon considered the question. "We remember what they did, but we also remember who we want to be. Forgiveness is not about them. It is about us. Then yes, we forgive them, but we do not forget." On Earth, at the memorial wall where the names of the fallen were carved in stone, a ceremony was held. Thousands attended. Millions more watched from across human space. Commander Kim Yuna's name was there. Lieutenant Beek Jun, Sergeant Onari, Chief Engineer Kwon Don, all the soldiers who had died behind enemy lines, all the civilians who had perished in the raids, all the heroes who would never come home. Admiral Beak stood before the wall, his hand resting on his nephew's name. He did not speak. He did not need to. Beside him stood Captain Park Daeho, survivor of the first battle of Sejong 7. He had come to pay his respects to Lieutenant Kim, the woman who had saved his life by staying behind when he fled to the escape pods. "She was the bravest person I ever knew," Park said quietly. "She was," Beak agreed. They all were. They stood in silence as the sun set over the memorial, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Behind them, a shuttle landed. It carried Vorath refugees, families fleeing the collapse of their empire. They had come to Earth asking for asylum, for a chance to start over. Earth accepted them, because humanity answered violence with strength. But strength with compassion. That was the human way. That was what made them different. That was why, in the end, they won.